Welcome to the Greg Farricielli podcast. We are brokers and investors working heavily in the real estate game and have met extraordinary people along the way who are doing amazing things to help their peers and their communities grow. We are excited to give you revolutionary ways to live your best life. Welcome everyone to my new podcast. I'm really excited about today. We have a good friend of mine and colleague in the real estate industry world, Miss Tifinie Capehart. She is a phenomenal agent at Parks. She's so knowledgeable. She knows development in so many different ways to serve her clients. She provides traditional residential real estate services in addition to investors purchasing vacant lots or investment properties. She has 13 years experience as an urban planner in Nashville, which is definitely something I wish I had for sure. And she has so much experience in writing and speaking in all different areas about the subject. And we're just excited to have you on. Off subject, we're going to talk about something a little bit different that I think is going to impact a lot of people. And that is being a mom and raising kids, being in real estate, and being a business owner. So Tifinie, tell me a little bit about your background, who you are, and what brought you to here.
Yeah. So what's up, Greg? Look, when I got the call to be on your podcast, I was like, ooh, I'd have made it now.
Oh, no. Well, we're glad to have you. We're definitely glad you're here.
I'm, let's see, how did I get here? So I got here because I started working for the city as an urban planner back in 2007, 2008. And I have a degree from Tennessee State University in architectural engineering. So I've always had a thing for cities and architecture and design. And so I found this career of urban planning. I was like, oh, that's really cool because it kind of combines all of this stuff, communicating, I love getting up and speaking in front of people and educating people about, planning and policy stuff. And so I worked for the city until about 2014, had my daughter, and I realized once my husband and I started growing our family that I wanted to do something where I'd have more control over my time and
Sure.
And so I started off getting my real estate license so I could do consulting, so urban planning consulting, helping people get their entitlements, their zoning, so they can then build a product that I would list on the back end. And that's worked out in that process with a few clients, but I've really gotten into the sales part of real estate quite a bit more. Mm-hmm.
So TSU grad, architecture and design. What interests you about getting into that in the first place, the architecture and design? Do you have an art background, or what was your interest on that to begin with?
Yeah. I think it just really, so funny thing is, I am a creative, I do have more of a creative, I don't know, I can't remember if that's left brain, right brain, whatever, but I do. So I wanted to be a singer. Don't ask me to sing anything because I have not received the training.
Oh, you just stole my next question. Okay.
If you catch me on my husband has a podcast, and we do a husband and wife show sometimes with his podcast, and sometimes I'll sing on there. So you have to listen to that. I grew up in the 80s where like Whitney Houston and then Mariah Carey, and I grew up in the era of like the 90s R&B diva and all that. So I wanted to, go into the performing arts. But I actually took the path of more STEM growing up. So math, science, and technology. Engineering, science, technology, engineering, and math. And so I found TSU because I was also looking to go to an HBCU, again, growing up in this.
Were you living in Nashville at the time?
No, I was from Louisville. I'm born in New Orleans, grew up in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, okay. So you came down to TSU to go to school.
Right.
Nice. Okay.
Grew up, again, with that era of like the Cosby Show and A Different World, where in School Days, if you're familiar with Spike Lee and School Days, and this idea of HBCU culture. And so I was looking for that experience. I could have gone to University of Kentucky in my home state, which has an architecture program, but TSU had an architectural engineering program. So it kind of merged this mathematics that my mom kind of coached me into, in addition to this architecture side, which combined, art and math. And so that's kind of
cool.
how I landed there.
So graduate TSU, you got a job here in the urban planning department. Now, kind of was that like a 40, 50 hour week job? Was that more freelance?
Oh, definitely one freelance.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
So you went right into working full time.
Right. So I went to Tennessee State. Then I got a master's in urban planning from the University of Louisville. And then when I was finishing up my graduate school work, the job became available in Nashville. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go back to Nashville. And so from there, and so working with the city, I really enjoyed the work that I did there. It was very fulfilling, because you got to really interact with just a little bit about every citizen in Nashville, every kind of citizen in Nashville, to help them come up with with goals and visions for their communities. I got to make a lot of relationships with the mayor's office, council people, the business community, neighborhood association. So it really, because I did a lot of community engagement work too, like how to communicate these, kind of technical, ideas about land use policy and things that could be really dry, how to communicate that to, a normal person that just, is going to work, raising their children, going grocery shopping on the weekends. And they don't really know how Nashville comes to be, right?
And it's so interesting you say that, because most people don't know those things. And now over time, I think everybody knows about it. Like, I mean, I talk to people that don't know anything about real estate. They're like, yeah, my lot's an R8 and I can do this, because it's almost so common now around here because it's just saturated. And I think the homeowners, they almost have to learn it at one point, because they need to know, because now it determines your highest and best use of your value of your property, instead of like, cool, I can put 2 here, but it didn't really matter.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about that too is, there's that component, but then I don't think people realize that there are plans in place that help, because that one little lot is just a small piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. And that's where planning comes in. It's like how to fit all of these bigger pieces together, like our infrastructure and our schools and our environmental systems and our business community. With real estate and housing, how to bring all those things together so they work in harmony, really.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, I mean, you've obviously learned a ridiculous amount of stuff for urban planning, and 2014 rolls around and you have your first, right?
Yeah.
And now it's like, what went through your thought process at that time? Like, I think the better question is, there's a lot of people that you went over the hump, you went over the threshold. So when you had your first child and you're working, like, what was the thought process of like, I want to do something different, and what are the steps to actually doing that in a smart manner that you did to be able to have the longevity and not have to go back to work?
Right. So I will say, so for me, I had worked with the Metro Planning Department going on 8 years at that point. And the last big project that I worked on while I was there was Nashville Next, which was the city's big comprehensive plan.
Right.
And cities do those processes like maybe once every 20 or 30 years, right? And so for Nashville, it was time to update its comprehensive plan. And so, so once we finished, and that was like a 3-year process. So once we finished that, I was like, okay, I have, just like with any other, maybe, job that you might have, once you feel like you've done everything that you can do there,
Right.
it's kind of time to move on. And so, I was starting my family. And like I said, I really started off wanting to do more consulting work because we had hired consultants to work on the plan. And I was in charge of like some of the invoicing and things, working with the community engagement consultants. And I was looking at the invoices. I was like, I could do this work for this amount of money, So it just got yeah.
Yeah, you capped off basically. So at the same time, almost your job, you're like, okay, I'm kind of, getting smarter than the job, and you're starting to see that you have value somewhere else.
Yeah.
I can do this too. It's like, wow, I can consult too. Now I know this, so why? So tell us a little bit about like the transition period. Like, so if you were me and like I'm a mom right now, and I'm just like, man, like, what do I want to get into real estate? Because I can't stand my job either. I'm just grown out of it. Like, how do I structure this? How do I present this to my significant other and still be able to have certain benefits maybe that I have for health and dental or whatever you have for your family? Like, what questions do you need to ask? And like, how do we do that?
I can answer all of that because we went through all of that.
Love it.
So first of all, I do have to credit my husband because my husband is an entrepreneur. He has had several different businesses. I mean, he's always had his own thing going. And when I met him, he was running his own nonprofit. And so I saw him and how the lifestyle that he was living, you know what I mean? Like I would get up and have to get on I-24 and be at work at 9 o'clock. And, he was like going to the gym and then he would go to, like he was, living this more entrepreneurial lifestyle, But it was, so I think, so it got my wheels turning about like, what else can I do? And so my husband, he said, well, first you have to write a plan. You have to write a business plan. He has an MBA. So he's like, you have to write a business plan. So he would send me sections of a business plan to work on and to write.
Got it. Let's unpack that for a second, because I think that is so important. Yeah. You have to have a business plan. That means, when you say the entrepreneurial, I mean, that is a different mindset. Like the difference is, he has freedom for his time, that he spent time and energy to create. So you have to, have that plan. You have to know, okay, I want to do this business, whether it's real estate or not, what is it going to take? And you have to spend the time to do the research to get real numbers and talk to the right people. So a business plan for a realtor. So tell me a little bit about that. Was it a very basic, like, look, I need this money for marketing. I need to save a certain amount of money. What kind of did that look like? What would you suggest somebody to have on that plan?
So my first business plan was for the consulting piece. Okay. So I thought about like, what is my kind of niche market? Who's my clientele? How much I did some research on like the people that are doing this kind of work, like how much are they getting paid? Because you don't want to price yourself too low. You don't want to price yourself too high.
Market research.
Yeah, I did market research. Yep. I thought about like my brand, what my brand would look like, kind of, what's my mission and what's my, so I did all of those things in a business plan. It was just a simple business plan. I think people think, oh my God, I got to write a business plan and it's got to have all the spreadsheets and all that stuff. It was just very simple, getting my thoughts from here onto paper and to have an outline. And I think I had to do that too, to show my husband that I was serious about it.
Well, that's anything, right? I mean, and you have to put time into it to be serious, because it is a serious thing.
Yeah, because I mean, so we're gonna be talking. Let's just talk real. At the time, I was the breadwinner in our house because my husband was running a nonprofit, and so when I came to him and said, I think I want to quit my job and do this, and he was like, and we had just, and so we literally had just, I was pregnant with our first child. my husband had actually started going back to school because he was getting to build upon his mentoring career and nonprofit career. He went and got a degree in counseling. So he was in school actually getting a second master's. And I was pregnant with my daughter. I remember being in the kitchen crying, like, I just don't think I can go back to working for somebody. You know what I mean? And we had a conversation about it later. He was like, I didn't agree with you because, that's kind of scary, but I will support you. So he wasn't going to let me fail. Right. So when I did that, so let's just talk through the whole transition. Okay.
Sure.
So
yes, support is huge.
Support is huge. It really is.
I just want to say, like, having the business plan, like when people say they want to support you, I could want to support you, but I have to have something to support.
Yeah.
So if you're giving me a plan, that I could support you in your plan and we can have a congruent direction where that's going to go. Right.
Yeah. And
so coming from there.
Yeah, he saw me because at first I was going to work with a business partner, and then so he saw us, meeting to kind of go through our, like we were forming this consultancy business, and he saw that, and then I also while I was working with the planning department on nights and weekends, I was getting my real estate license. So I was going over to Green Hills to the CLI to do the classes at nights and weekends. And so he saw that too, because I was like, I'm serious about.
And then you had to pay for the classes. You had to study. Yeah, there's a lot of, yeah.
Yeah, I had to study. So I think he saw all of that. So by the time I had my license for about a year before I left my job.
Okay, so you had your real estate license for a year before you left your job.
Yes. Because it really took that long to get your licensure, then find a brokerage to place it, to place it with, and
plus
and then
you're working and taking care of the family at the same time, so you kind of had to fit it in the bits and pieces whenever you could.
Right. So then once I got pregnant. So I have my real estate license. I've got a business idea I want to roll with. And that was the kitchen moment where I was like crying, and I'm just like, I can't go back. I have to see how this is going to turn out. I have to go full time at it to see if it's going to, turn into anything. And so he was just like, okay. So from there, talking about the transition. So from there, I had my maternity leave, enjoyed my time with my new baby. And then after maternity leave, I think I put in my 2 weeks after that. And we had to get on teen care for a minute because, I just quit my job, lost that good Metro.
the Metro benefits, right?
And then my husband was essentially a graduate student, right?
Okay. So let's talk about that for a second, the benefits, because that is important, because I know that is like a concern for everyone, especially if you have 401k and stuff built up. So how did you offset that? So the 10 care offsets that, but how do you determine the best move for that, like to figure that out?
To be honest, it was just like, we're getting ready to have we may have had Ava at the time already when so we were able to get on 10 care because of our income and because we had the child, a child.
Sure.
So it was really just a survival thing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like this baby needs to go to the doctor every month.
A part of the plan.
So at the time, and then, for us, it was just very basic. Like, I don't think I didn't have, eye or dental or anything like that. We just had basic, and so we just did what we had to do. The things that I'm talking about, the things that I would do differently, if you can, is, have a savings, obviously, saved up. So because we were living, so we used a credit card for a little bit for, groceries and gas and essentials. Luckily, I bought my townhouse during the recession, that's a whole nother story. Don't do that. or I will say, don't make a bad real estate decision. You can buy property in a recession. That's a good idea, but don't make a bad decision in a recession. But luckily, amidst all the rising cost of housing in Nashville, we had a pretty affordable mortgage at the time. I think it might have been $800 or something like that. Like it's super, really cheap. And we might have did a mortgage. I think we even did a mortgage modification at the time. So, I mean, we were doing we just had to survive at that point. And I'm not saying that like we were eating, mayonnaise sandwiches or anything like that. Like we were still living well, but we made some sacrifices.
Yeah, you had to shift, basically.
We had to shift. Yeah.
So
From a pocket of comfort to this slight pocket of like discomfort.
Right, where the growth comes from the discomfort for sure.
Yeah.
We talk about saving too. Everybody, I get that question all the time. And do you have a suggestion on, do you save months worth of bills? Do you say what savings, like what does that mean? What does that exactly mean to you that you would wish you would have done before?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, what do they say? You're supposed to have like 3 to 6 months of reserves set up, but
right, and that's usually where I'm at. 3 to 6 months of any of your business, any of your bills that you have to pay, your survive, your mortgage, any kind of payments and groceries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I'm telling people, if you really want to save, start saving some business expenses too.
Right.
So if you think that you have, $1,000 a month, and save that money for sure.
Yeah. And so my husband is I'm not the big saver, but so I will say, before you jump out there to do something like this, just realize, especially with real estate, I think people get into real estate thinking they're just going to get their license and it's going to just be, but you really are starting a business. And I didn't really get that until maybe year 2 or 3. I'm going on 7 years now. So maybe about year 2 or 3, it's like, no, I need to put aside for marketing. I need to, so I will say, before you jump out and do any entrepreneurial pursuit full time, use your current workplace as a foundation for your new business. Like if you are getting paid well, start chunking money aside, for the time when you are going to step away. I had a conversation with my boss before I left to say, hey, here's what I'm thinking about doing. Like we went out to coffee and, and he was supportive of it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's great. And that's great that you say that, having a good relationship with your employer does help. Same thing here. I worked at a restaurant and I told them, and they were awesome. They said, you do not have to be on a schedule. Just call if you need to come in. And they were supportive. So I definitely don't suggest the people that are like, want to get out of their job just to tell them to kiss and get out of here. I mean, work that relationship, because if it doesn't work out, you may need to go back. Right.
One of my girlfriends, when I decided to quit my job, she said, excuse, can I cuss on here?
Oh, yeah.
She said, bitch, you got 2 degrees. If it doesn't work out, just go get a job, So I have a master's in urban planning. So I know that I could go back to work if I needed to. I could probably go back to the city if I needed to. And then 2, I have had several clients that have come from my former, coworkers.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't leave any bridges burned when I left there. I did what I was supposed to do, and I left on good solid ground. So that is
so important. People don't realize that how much, like, your old job and those people, probably know a lot of people, and you have to leave that other job with integrity. Do not be one of those people that just walk off.
Yeah. So going into that part of the transition. So once I finally decided to quit working there, I actually had a kind of coming out party at a local bar where I had my old colleagues come, and people that I had met, to just say, hey, I'm switching lanes, I'm switching careers, and this is what I'm doing now. And so at that party, they were giving me referrals of folks that could use my help. And So that's kind of how I announced, I guess, that I was moving into something new.
And that goes back to like, you know what, those people, they were not really hiring you for your real estate experience because you didn't have any. They hired you.
Mm-hmm.
You
Right.
know, that's huge. So when you have to be able to, you as a person, they know that whatever you're going to come across, what you're learning, that you're going to learn it correctly, and they're not going to feel at risk.
Right.
Big difference.
Right.
Exactly. What you do at your old job and the people you know is going to carry over.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I, and another thing I was doing at that time, I was listening to, and this is great, especially for women watching. It's called the Biz Chicks podcast.
The Biz Chicks, B-I-Z Chicks. Okay, we'll definitely write that down. Okay.
With an X. She says chicks with an X.
Oh, Chicks with an X. Got it.
And I listened to that religiously because it was all about like building, she's a business coach. And so she would just on her podcast, just have all this really, really great information. So if anybody is thinking about starting business or going into real estate, that is an awesome podcast to listen to. And I literally listened to it every single day. And it got to a point to where I was rocking and rolling with my business where I didn't need to listen as much. But and then too, because I'm in real estate, so she more so leans towards like consultants and service-based industry type businesses and like that. But it's really, so I really was consuming a lot of this like business growth kind of podcast and information when I first got started, to really help me. Now I know you've like paid for like business coaches and all that good stuff. And it shows too. It shows. I mean, you've scaled so fast. So that's the one thing I haven't done yet was like pour money into some of that. But just any free resource I was able to find.
Which there's tons of free resources for every industry right now. I mean, you've got YouTube University to, save a lot for sure.
And so especially, and that's important too. Like if you are, like we were talking, if you're quit your job and you're having to do things to kind of sacrifice, and just live below your means for a little while, you don't really have the money to thousands of dollars to give to a business coach or anything like that. There's podcasts, there's, webinars, there's, just all kind of stuff that you can use to help improve yourself. And
absolutely.
So that's,
okay. So you told your boss, you got your boss on board, your husband's on board, and you finally take the plunge with no savings. What was that first, when you finally woke up that first morning, like, I don't have a job right now. It's like, I have a kid over there. This guy I'm trying to take care of so he can get his nonprofit going. What do you do that first day?
It was awesome.
What'd you do? I love to hear that. I mean, so I guess let's like, when you woke up that morning, were you like, or were you like, yes?
I was like, yes.
Nice.
And I'll tell you why. So I had already, I was already kind of cultivating some clients, on the side. I think I had my first closing like right after I quit my job. So, and I had been working with them for like maybe about, maybe 6 months to a year to help them find their house. Right. So I had already tasted like that first commission check, and it might've been like $3,500 or something, but it was like, what? This is so.
You know what it is? Like my first check was $4,000, and you know what it does? It makes you know that it's possible.
Yes. Yes.
It's that first check makes it in your head. It's that confirmation that like, yes, I did that once. I can do it again.
Yes. And, for me, and like I said, I was grateful for my time working with the city, but before I left, we did performance reviews, and I got a good performance review, and it was like, oh, and we're going to give you an extra 15 cents. And it's like, I know that I can do better. So I made back my income that second year. I think I made back my income that I was making at the planning department. That was a goal. I was like, I just needed to at least make what I was making working for the city.
You have to have the confidence to know that you can do it also.
Right.
So, I mean, the mindset of being able to do that and continue to do that, I mean, I think that's a skill to be learned, you know? So that brings back, do you have like a morning routine where you kind of talk yourself through stuff back then where you're like, you know, I'm going to read this today and I'm going to like, you know, I have my affirmations and so was there any of that going on?
There was all that going on. There was all that going on because, you know, you were out there and you don't have any clients. So you have to build up the confidence to go and get clients, meet the people, you know. Yeah, I mean, I had affirmations. I told myself, I had to tell myself, and this is my business motto to this day is I'm the best person for the job because I care. So when I was going into an appointment with someone, I had to tell myself that. So yeah, I was doing all of that stuff, you know. And so, you know, but waking up and not having to get in that I-24 traffic to be on someone else's clock, that was amazing. You know,
liberating.
It was so liberating. And so yeah, it was so liberating. And the moment that it hit me was I was planning my daughter's, it might have been her first birthday. And I was at Publix in the middle of the day getting cupcakes and like ordering cupcakes and all that stuff. And I thought to myself, I was like, I'm here in the middle of the day and I did not have to ask anybody if I could come and do this. This is why I quit my job.
Yeah,
you know,
for the freedom.
So I could have that freedom. Now, with the caveat that I probably work more now than when I did at Metro Planning.
Right, but is it your choice or are they making you go to work?
Right, it's the choice, you know. As long as I'm getting done what I need to get done in producing, I can be doing it at 12 o'clock at night, or I can be doing it at 12 in the middle of the day, you know. Yeah. But so that's what it felt like. It felt good.
And even with doing the affirmations and stuff like that, I want people to realize that it's not one and done. Like, you need to do that. You need to talk to yourself well every single day. And not only that, it's like, you know, after a while, when you tell yourself something, you start to understand it, you start to believe it, you know, kind of the impact goes away a little bit and you need to change it too. So I think you need to trick your mind a little bit to change it, to believe different things and know that it's like the compound effect. You know, you chip away at it every day, you know, 1% every day, 0.5% every day, one more phone call, one more rep, you know, just to be able to have those rough days and not totally crash.
Yes. Yeah. And like I said, I think I also just have to shout out my husband because, you know, he's been there, you know, he's run all types of businesses and the longest stint was his mentorship nonprofit for 10 years. And, you know, and he's tough, you know, he has a tough, very determined mindset. And so I had to learn that, you know, I had to build that muscle, you know, I had to build that muscle. And so now I feel like, you know, and you do have times when you lose a listing or a buyer or something like that, or you don't win a deal but what I've learned is I can't stay there very long. Like I have my moment of like, damn it. And then I have to, I gotta get out. You gotta get out of it.
That's so important. I mean, you're allowed to have that moment to be pissed.
Yeah.
To throw something, to say those things, but once that moment's over, it's done and you move on immediately. Yeah. Because you know, you can't let those the worst 10 seconds of your day completely annihilate your day.
And I learned that too from my first broker, because I had a horrible deal when I first got into the business. I think everybody has one where it's and so he was like, look, I know it feels bad, but just you can't stay here long. Just tomorrow's a new day, you know? And so I took that lesson. And another thing I learned is, this is one of my things I would say to myself, if I fail, I learn and become better.
Yeah. Fail forward for sure.
I fail and I learn and become better every time.
Right.
So every time I lose a client or something like that, I just think like, okay, what could I have done differently? what can I learn from this situation and take it into the next client engagement?
So, I mean, the transition seemed to be gradual. I mean, you had your license for a year, you're working urban planning, and that is really smart how you started working clients. You start marketing, you get to know the market, whatever your industry is, learn it, get yourself set up, start feeling what it's going to be like to work with people, engage time and money. And so tell me, so you had the moment, you finally left, and you're feeling good. Was there any ever moments where you're just like, you know what, maybe I just need to go back?
Nope.
You know, it's just no.
No, I mean, honestly, I did not have that feeling at all. There were a few people who, my colleagues who I worked with and who started their own business, but did go back for a spell or whatever.
Sure.
But I just, no.
But it feels good to know that your worst case scenario was your best case scenario at one time, and you could always go back to that if you needed to, even for a short time.
And I told my husband, I was like, you know, I would only go back to working if we just absolutely like the market crashes and nobody's buying anything.
Yeah.
You know, but because now I know that I can create opportunities for myself, and so I will continue to try to do that as much as possible. And let me say this: there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, this did not work out, so let me go. No, there's nothing wrong with that.
A calculated reset is always good. If you know that going backward doesn't always mean you're going backward, it just means it's always a transition, you know, so you learn some more stuff. And if you have to go back to be able to accelerate that learning, or it's great. I mean, that's the way to do it. So
I would have, because if I go back or whatever, to ever go back, now I've had 7 years experience of working in the private industry, in the private market, you know, and so I'm going back with not only and that's something the Biz Chicks talks about. When people hire you, they're not just hiring you because you've had 5 years in real estate. They're hiring you because you have 5 years in real estate and 25 years in corporate America. So you combine all of that with your experience to now help clients, you know? So it just compounds, you know?
Yeah, right. Chip away at it. So for anyone out there there's so many people that I'm sure that are on the fence, you know, what would you like say to those moms? What questions do they need to ask themselves to kind of get over the hump to make even the first step?
Yeah. So I would say, just realize, let's see, what would I say to somebody who is a mom? You know, first of all, I think having your spousal support is really important, because when I'm not able to be home, you know, my husband is there, and vice versa.
Sure.
You know, I think we especially during now with COVID and the kids being home, we have to be there for each other like that. But you know, to understand that too, like, especially if you're a mom that has been home, like you haven't been in the workforce for a minute, and you're trying to, because you've been with the kids and things like that, you just have to set those expectations, like, okay, you know, I'm going to be working or showing homes on the weekends and doing this or that. So you may not have lunch, dinner, you know, like you have to set some expectations for your family. But I also say you have to set expectations for your clients also.
That is huge.
Yeah, because I do have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old at home all the time who need me. And I can't always just drop what I'm doing and, you know, go show a house. You know what I mean?
Yeah, nor should you. I mean, you have to set the boundaries. These are my basic work hours. In the event of this, there could be this. And that's huge, because so many people are afraid to do that, even when they don't have a lot of ties.
And actually today, I set an appointment during the time I was supposed to be homeschooling my daughter. And I said, you know, I told myself this is going to be our homeschool time. I'm not going to do it. And I did it. and I had mom guilt. And I called my client. I said, I'm so sorry, but can we reschedule? Because, and she's a mom, you know, and I was like, I have got serious mom guilt right now. I cannot leave. And she was like, I understand, you know, it's not a big, you know, don't worry about it. So, and I may have lost clients because of that, you know what I mean? Because
and that's okay.
And that's okay. That's totally fine because, you know, they just, my family needs me, and but I do love to work. I love my job.
Yeah.
And so I'm constantly trying to make sure I don't drop the ball on being a good mom, being a good wife.
Yeah.
Because that's important.
Yeah, you have to schedule everything out. You have your work time, you have to have your play time, your vacation, your private time for yourself, or
Yeah.
so, and that's huge. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on. I think that this is going to connect with a lot of people for sure. Before we go, tell me how we could find you, anything that you're looking for, anything that we could do for you.
Yeah, so you can find me. I'm on Facebook at Tifinie Capehart, or Tifinie Capehart Realtor is my business Facebook page. And then I'm mostly on Instagram too at City Speak Photos. And so you'll see me on Instagram a lot. I'm not as funny as you on Instagram. Uh, but I'm on there. And then, you know, so things I'm working on. So my husband and I, we just built a new home in Bordeaux, which we love. We love our house. We love that community. And so that was kind of our first foray into like real estate investment, so to speak, for ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now we were going to look for a rental property, but I think I want to do a short-term rental property. If I can make that happen, I think the returns on it are a lot.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, if anybody out there has some short-term rentals, we'll send up Tifinie's way. And again, I really do. I thank you for coming on here to talk about this. I think it's going to connect to a lot of people. Tons of value here, and we appreciate it. I'm sure they do too. And I guess we're out, and I hope to see you soon. And you have a wonderful day. And let me know. We'll be back soon with you.
Let me say thank you too, Greg, for always being a good resource. I think we came in the business around the same time, and you just really just scaled and scaled and scaled. So I do know.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Please feel free to reach out anytime, guys. But we're out.